You know, some villains are after power, some are after money, and then there are the ones who just want to watch the world burn. Today, we're diving deep into the one who brings the matches, the gasoline, and a truly psychopathic smile. This is pure, unadulterated chaos. We're about to dissect the anatomy of Carnage. I mean, just look at this guy. Carnage isn't your typical bad guy with a plan. No, he's a living, breathing nightmare made of pure chaos. A crimson-colored monster built for one thing and one thing only: maximum destruction. He's what happens when a monster finds its perfect soulmate, which just happens to be another monster. And there you have it, straight from the monster's mouth. That's not just some empty threat, that is a mission statement. It's his entire reason for being. This one line tells you everything you need to know about his motivation, which is, there isn't one. It's just pure, unfiltered mayhem for its own sake. Okay, so to really get Carnage, you gotta start with his old man, Venom. See, when Venom's popularity just exploded, Marvel had a problem. How in the world do you create a villain that makes Venom look like the good guy? Well, their answer was to create his kid and make him pure evil. So what is Carnage, really? It's terrifyingly simple. You take an alien parasite, Venom's kid, and you don't just bond it with some random schmuck. No, you bond it with Cletus Kasady, a guy who was already a monster long before any symbiote ever came knocking. And this is where it gets really interesting, because it shows the fundamental difference between them. Venom is a partnership, right? Eddie Brock and the symbiote, they have this relationship. That's why they always say we. But with Carnage, there's no we. The symbiote is just a weapon, an extension of Cletus Kasady's will. He says I. It is total domination. And this was all by design. The creators wanted a character with zero redeeming qualities. I mean, Stan Lee himself even had some input, pushing for the host to be a total, remorseless psychopath. Someone who would make Venom's whole lethal protector thing seem, almost heroic by comparison. So how did this perfect storm of horror even happen? Well, Carnage's origin isn't some complex, drawn-out tragedy. Nope. It's a quick, brutal, and frankly horrifying accident that unleashes absolute hell on the Marvel Universe. It all went down in a jail cell. Eddie Brock's Venom symbiote breaks him out, but in the process, it kinda gives birth and leaves its newborn offspring behind. So this new little symbiote, all alone, finds the only other living thing in the cell, Cletus Kasady. It slips into his bloodstream through a cut, and bam! In that one moment, one of the deadliest villains ever created comes into being. But listen, the alien parasite is only half of this nightmare equation. To really understand Carnage's evil, you have to look at the man inside the monster, Cletus Kasady himself. Kasady doesn't kill for revenge or for power. He kills because he has this terrifying philosophy. He believes that total chaos is the only real thing in the universe. To him, all our rules, our morals, our ideas of good and evil, they're just jokes. He thinks of his killing sprees as a kind of performance art, a way to enlighten everybody to his truth, and even signs his work, usually leaving Carnage rules scrawled in blood at his crime scenes. And that is the key difference. Venom is a constant tug of war between Eddie and the symbiote for control. But Carnage, it's a perfect, horrifying fusion. Kasady's sadism and the symbiote's power don't just work together, they amplify each other, creating a monster that is so much more unhinged and deadly than Venom could ever be. So what happens when you get that perfect fusion? Well, you get an absolutely terrifying set of powers. Carnage isn't just some brute, he's a walking, talking arsenal of organic weapons. First off, he's stronger than Spider-Man and Venom combined. Let that sink in. He can shapeshift parts of his body into any weapon he can think of. Axes, blades, you name it. He can even shoot pieces of himself as deadly projectiles. On top of that, he has a healing factor that lets him recover from pretty much anything. And, this is the really scary part, he's completely invisible to Spider-Man's spider sense. Just a totally unstoppable killing machine. And you can see his raw physical power right here in the numbers. His strength and his durability are just off the charts. He's not just some philosophical threat, he's an absolute powerhouse who can go toe-to-toe with the strongest heroes Marvel has. But he's not invincible. And what's interesting is that his weaknesses are a little different from Venom's. Both symbiotes hate sound and fire, right? But Carnage can actually take sonics a bit better. On the flip side, he's way more vulnerable to intense heat. It's a small detail, but in a fight, that's the kind of thing that can mean life or death.
So Carnage isn't just a comic book villain. At this point, he's a pop culture icon of chaos. His simple, terrifying idea has let him stick around for decades, bleeding right off the page and into pretty much every other kind of media.
He burst onto the scene in 1992, and just 2 years later, he was the star of his own hit video game, Maximum Carnage. I mean, could there be a more perfect title? And then, of course, in 2021, he finally hit the big screen, bringing his special brand of terror to a whole new generation of fans. And his impact has definitely not gone unnoticed. Back in 2009, the huge pop culture site IGN put together their list of the greatest comic book villains ever. Out of literally thousands of characters, Carnage made the top 100. That's a huge testament to his terrifyingly simple and effective design. Just pure, absolute evil. So that kind of brings us to the big question, right? In a world full of complex villains with tragic backstories, why is a monster who just wants to kill for the heck of it still so popular? What is it about this walking, talking embodiment of chaos that we just can't seem to look away from? Honestly, it's a question that's almost as disturbing as the character himself.